So no presentation. I'm just going to do this as an interactive conversation with you. So from the moon back to Mother Earth, and back to Mother Earth in a way that many of us are affected. Many of us feel very passionately about things like terrorism, about bombs going off, people shooting up, killing individuals. Before I begin with a few myths, and basically I'm going to deal with just 3 myths of terrorism which we are sort of used to thinking about. I just want to show of hands, how many of you have been, since I see many people from Bombay here, how many of you have been personally affected by terrorism? Personally. So that's about 4 or 5 people. You lost someone whom you knew in an attack. You were perhaps in the hotel when something like that happened. So I'm glad that at least 3 or 4 people in this audience think that they have been personally affected by terrorism. And that's the first myth that I want to talk about. We often think about terrorism as bombs going off, cycle bombs, suicide attackers, planes crashing into buildings, and that for us is terrorism. So 9/11 happens, and then a few years later 26/11 happens, and then there's a Pune bakery, then Delhi High Court, and then you have the latest one in Hyderabad. So that's terrorism for us, and in between we have these periods of peace, which is a myth. So let me explain what the definition of terrorism is in the study and in the study of warfare. Terrorism is a strategic weapon of war that is used by adversaries who are weaker, smaller, to compel a much larger force to do their bidding. So when the Al-Qaeda successfully manages to get the US out of Afghanistan or Iraq, or the LET makes the Indian government use a very heavy hand in the valley, or a bunch of goons stop the screening of a film by threatening violence, they are all following the same strategy, which is a small numerical group is compelling a much larger group to do their bidding in a way that is far disproportionate to their conventional strength. So let me put this in a different context for you. A couple of years ago, let's take 2011, India lost millions of people because of malnutrition, because of safety features not being there in hospitals, because of spurious drugs, because of adulterated food, you name it. Just taking one example that I was talking to somebody about. In the year 2011, India lost 1,86,000 lives in road accidents. 1,86,000 lives. That's roughly about 20 per hour. So by the time I finish my talk, 5 more people would be dead because of road accidents. We lost another 500,000 people who were wounded because of road accidents, and the Forbes estimates 2.7% of our GDP was lost in the year 2011 because of road accidents. That's a big number. Just to put that in context, our entire health budget, India's health budget for the year 2011 was 1.2% of our GDP. And yet in 2008, 10 men come into Bombay, they killed 163 people over 3 days. In the same 3 days, by the way, 1,500 people died in the road accidents. And yet after the 26/11 attacks, not just in India, but in several countries of the world, billions of dollars were spent to put in security measures in the aftermath of 26/11. So each time you enter a 5-star hotel and buy a cup of coffee, you actually pay a certain surcharge, which is added because of those mirrors under your car and the DFMD that's put out there and the number of people who have been employed to look after security. Each time you buy a plane ticket, you are now paying for the surcharge that has been added because of the number of hours an aircraft can't take off because of the security measures that have been put in place. Matter of fact, each time you travel on a road and there is a barricade, each time you walk into a mall, I have a 9-year-old daughter who's frisked each time she enters a mall. It's not about her time, it's also about her psyche that is being developed. We pay for terrorism on a daily basis. And ironically, all these taps that are turned on after an event happens can never be turned off. So no committee can sit down and say, you know what, it's been 4 years since 26/11, maybe we can do away with some of these security measures. That can never happen. Once a security measure has been put in place, it will be paid for with your money, your taxpayer money, the money that you actually spend on a daily basis in perpetuity. That's going to happen forever. Nobody is going to be able to take it out. So the next time someone asks you a question and says, are you personally affected by terrorism? My sense is you should think about the answer very carefully, because terrorism is not about killing 163 people. It is about changing the way that you take billions of dollars out from your developmental budget and put it in largely wasteful expenditure, because this is non-productive investment. It is going away from places of education, where hospitals should be built, where education should be taken care of, and a million other things that this money is required for in expenditure that is completely wasteful. The second myth that I want to talk to you about is this phrase that you have heard very often, zero tolerance to terrorism. I'm sure you've heard this phrase, that we want zero tolerance to terrorism. So it's a nice macho statement to make, and leaders have to make this statement because that is the beast. Terrorism is something that plays with the mind of the citizenry, and leaders have to assuage the fear, and they have to make these bluster statements to say that we will have zero tolerance to terrorism. Problem is that it is a largely empty statement, and I'll tell you the reason why. Again, last year or the year before that or decades before that, there were several $1 million worth of contraband that come into India and go out of India. So it ranges from drugs to spurious medicines to fake DVDs to pirated music to fake Louis Vuitton bags, fake watches, all of these things. And you know, pirated DVDs are available in which market in Delhi? Sorry? Everywhere. And in Bombay? Everywhere. Right. Now the conduits which bring these fake DVDs, fake Louis Vuitton bags, fake watches all the way from the Far East, the ships that bring them, the containers that bring them, the ports where they land, and from those ports the distribution channel which goes through, it is all illicit underground. Right? And of course these guys are bad and they need to be punished. But there is a reason why these pirated DVDs are brought here. You want to take a guess what the reason is? Because people buy them. Now this very same conduits, the same channels, the underground channels of distribution, the underground channels of communication, of illegal transfer of funds, of illicit ports, of paid off officials, is the channel through which RDXs can come in, explosives can come in, weapons can come in, and human trafficking can take place. There is no way to have zero tolerance to terrorism in a society that is tolerant of every other crime. That's not possible. There is no way to say that I'm going to create an enclave of clean water in a polluted river. It can't work. So if you want to have, if a society wants to have zero tolerance to terrorism or any crime, then they have to become highly intolerant of every other crime, because there is no way for security forces to decide that this particular container carrying Louis Vuitton bags can be allowed to go through because he is not carrying any RDX in it. There is no way to determine that. The third myth is this belief that there is a silver CCTV bullet out there somewhere. And that's the fascinating thing about security and terrorism especially. That normally if there is a sort of an endemic, if there is a disease, if there is a swine flu that is spreading rapidly and doctors come on TV channels and specialists come and they give you advice on what to do, what not to do, by and large, we follow them. But the moment there is a bomb blast, even page 3 celebrities turn experts in counter-terror overnight. And that's the beast. That's the nature of the beast, because terrorism is, after all, playing with somebody's mind. So people are so afraid that they want to participate in this battle against terror, and they will immediately jump in and say, we need to buy more CCTVs, more bulletproof jackets, we need to put more boots on the ground. And I just want to take you back to the first myth here. Every society, including ours, has got a certain ratio between people who are economically producing economic stuff and a ratio of people who are dependent on them, who are not doing anything economically. Now, each time you ask for more battalions to be raised, more troops to be created, essentially you're skewing this ratio. And of course, these young men, these young, educated, able-bodied men with 20 years, 25 years career ahead of them are doing a great job protecting our country. But they are being removed from an economically productive function and being put into a function which is largely carrying pieces of metal and standing on the roads all over the place. Standing in front of malls, standing in front of theaters, standing in front of campuses. I don't know if you're aware of this, that the security industry is the second largest employer of men and women in the country today, just behind manufacturing. So in the last 5 to 6 years, that one 26/11 attack has effectively worked by debilitating India's economic prowess, largely because people ask for more boots, more CCTVs, more gadgets, more bulletproof vehicles, all of this stuff to be bought. So this myth that somehow by adding more tools and more technology you will solve terrorism is actually that. It's a myth. To think about solving terrorism, to think about understanding terrorism, a good sort of analogy is to think about terrorism as a disease and the society as a patient. Now, this is not a disease where specialists can lay down the patient on the table, do a surgery, remove the tumor, stitch him up and say, go on your way. It's not that kind of a disease. This is an ailment that is a result of several years of neglect, of ignoring fundamental issues, of not tackling the root causes when they should have been tackled. This is a disease which can be only cured by physiotherapy. And those of you who have undergone physiotherapy will know that a physiotherapist, a very good physiotherapist, can advise you, he can counsel you, he can design a program with you, he can even come in the morning, wake you up, tell you what kind of shoes to wear, what kind of shorts to wear, and tell you how to run. But the running has to be done by the patient, not by the specialist. It doesn't matter how many commando battalions you raise to do your running for you, the society is not going to improve because this is physiotherapy, it is not surgery. So, I want to leave you with just 2 or 3 thoughts. The first thought, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of us who think that terrorism is something that happens once in a while and doesn't affect us personally, it's complete bollocks. It affects each and every one of us. Matter of fact, an incident which happens halfway across the world, I don't know how many of you have paid attention that now when you travel to the US or to UK, you will see the same level of security in hotels, which is an aftermath of what happened in Mumbai. So it affects all of us. It affects us in perpetuity in very, very different ways. For instance, I don't know how many of you went to Goa in 2009. 2008 November, when the incident happened, was the peak season for Goa, and Goa, as many of you know, survives on charters. These foreign charters come in and they bring the economy into Goa, and Goa thrives on that. 2008, all charters were cancelled. 2009, they were cancelled. 2010, they were less than 1/3 of the charters that would come in. Now, the kid of the waiter who works in a shack who dropped out of school is not going to go back into school in 2012. His career, which would have taken a graph after getting an education, going to university, being a capable earning member of the society, is now going to go down because he dropped out of school. And no matter what you do post 26/11, no matter what kind of security features you put in, no matter how much of bluster you put out there, this kid is not going to go back to school. So the first myth that we are not affected by it in some way or the other, you need to take out of your head. The second one, you cannot have zero tolerance to one set of crime alone. It has to be zero tolerance across the spectrum. And the last piece, this is an exercise, this is a disease which has to be cured by the patient, not by the specialist, because this is physiotherapy, it is not surgery. Thank you very much. Thank you.